Chapter 1. The engagement that meant nothing. The engagement ring on her finger sparkled under the soft golden lights, but to me, it felt meaningless. Everyone around us was celebrating. Smiles, laughter. Congratulations, it was everything a perfect engagement should look like. But something was off. I could see it in her eyes. Ina stood beside me, dressed beautifully, her smile flawless for everyone else. But I knew her too well. That smile didn't reach her eyes. And that's when I noticed it. Across the hall. He wasn't part of the family. Not someone I recognized. But the way Ina's eyes drifted toward him, again and again, told me everything I needed to know. Not curiosity. Not surprise. Connection. Are you okay? I asked her quietly. She flinched slightly before forcing another smile. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I followed her gaze again. The man was still there, watching, waiting. And then, Ina looked at him, and for a split second, her expression changed. Soft, emotional, almost longing. That was enough. The noise of the party faded into the background as a single realization hit me. I wasn't the only man in her story. Later that night, after most guests had left, I found her alone on the balcony. The city lights stretched endlessly below us, glowing like silent witnesses. "You know him," I said, stepping beside her. She didn't deny it. Instead, she closed her eyes for a moment. "He's my childhood love." There it was. Simple, honest, devastating. I leaned against the railing, surprisingly calm. "Hi, you're engaged to me." Her fingers tightened around the railing. "It's complicated," she whispered. I let out a quiet chuckle. "It always is." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence said more than words ever could. "Do you still love him?" I finally asked. She didn't answer immediately, but her silence was louder than anything she could have said. That was the moment I understood everything. This engagement, it wasn't about love. It was about timing, pressure, circumstances. Andy, I was just the safe choice. I looked out at the city, my expression unreadable. "Then let me ask you one last thing," I said calmly. She turned toward me, nervous now. "What happens when he asks you to choose?" Her lips parted slightly. "Again." She didn't answer. And that silence, it told me exactly how this story was going to begin. Not love, not with trust, but with betrayal. Chapter 2. The first betrayal begins. The next morning felt different. Not because anything had changed, but because now I could see everything clearly. Ina sat across from me at breakfast, quietly stirring her coffee. Her movements were calm, controlled. Almost too controlled. "Did you sleep well?" she asked softly. I looked at her for a moment. The same woman. Same Fassi. But now I knew there was someone else in her heart. "Yeah," I replied casually. "Better than expected." She gave a small nod, but her eyes didn't meet mine. That was the first sign. Avoidance. Later that day, I decided not to guess anymore. I decided to confirm. I followed her. Not like a jealous man. Like a man who already knew the truth just needed proof. She told me she had a family errand. Instead, She went to a quiet cafe across town, and he was already there. I watched from outside. Through the glass, I saw everything. The way her face lit up when she saw him. The way she smiled a real smile this time. Not the one she gave me. They talked like no time had passed. Like the years between them meant nothing. Then, he reached across the table and held her hand. She didn't pull away. That moment hit harder than I expected. Not because I was surprised, but because it confirmed something deeper. I was never her first choice. I leaned back slightly, watching silently. Most men would be stormed, created a scene. But I didn't move. Because there wasn't what else. Clarity was. A few minutes later, I saw her wipe a tear from her cheek. He said something I couldn't hear, but I didn't need to. Her expression said it all. She still loved him. I stepped away from the window, slipping my hands into my pockets. So this is how it is, I muttered under my breath. Not betrayal out of nowhere, but a slow, inevitable truth finally revealing itself. That evening, she returned home like nothing had happened. Long day, she said, placing her bag down. I nodded slightly. Yeah, I replied. I can imagine. She paused, just for a second, as if she sensed something. But then she smiled again. That same practiced smile. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. Because if she was playing her own game, then it was time I started playing mine. Chapter 7. The second fiancée appears. By the time I got home that night, my mind was clear. Tokliar. There was no confusion left. No denial. Ina had made her choice long ago, she just hadn't said it out loud yet. And me, I was done being someone's safe option. The next morning, I cancelled the wedding. Not dramatically. Not emotionally. Just quietly. A single message. We should stop this before it becomes something worse. She called me immediately. Waichiwachi. What are you talking about? Her voice shook. I leaned back in my chair, calm. You don't love me, Ina. Silence. Heavy, unavoidable silence. She hesitated. I didn't let her finish. You don't have to explain. I already know. For a moment, I thought she would fight for us. Say something. Deny it. But instead, I'm sorry. That was it. No resistance. No regret strong enough to stop me. Just an apology. I ended the call and stared at the ceiling. Strangely, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. 2 weeks later, I was at a business event, surrounded by people who cared more about deals than emotions. Exactly the kind of place I needed. No lies, no fake love. Ambition. That's where I met her. Zoya. She walked in like she owned the room. Confident, elegant, unbothered. Her presence alone shifted attention. And when her eyes met mine, she didn't look away. Interesting. You're staring, she said as she approached, a faint smirk on her lips. And you noticed, I replied. She raised an eyebrow, amused. Bold. We talked. Not like strangers. Not like people trying to impress each other. It felt equal. calculated. "You're different," she said at one point, studying me carefully. "You don't seem desperate." I chuckled softly. "That's because I'm not." She smiled, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something shift. Days turned into meetings. Meetings turned into dinners. And before I realized it, Zoya became part of my life. But unlike before, I didn't rush. I didn't fall blindly. I observed. I calculated. Then one evening, she looked at me and said something unexpected. "I don't do half connections," she said calmly. "If we move forward, it's serious." I met her gaze. Serious. The word felt heavier now. After everything that happened, was I ready again? Or was I just stepping into another game? I gave her a small, controlled smile. "Then let's make it serious." But don't. I didn't realize yet. This serious decision would lead me into something far worse than betrayal. Because unlike Aina, Zoya didn't just have a past. She had unfinished business. Chapter 4. The second betrayal unfolds. Zoya was nothing like Aina. Where Aina hesitated, Zoya decided. Where Aina hid emotions, Zoya controlled them. That's why I didn't notice it at first. Or maybe I chose not to. Our relationship moved fast but not recklessly. Everything between us felt intentional. Dinners turned into late-night conversations. Conversations turned into understanding. And understanding turned into trust. 3 months later, we were engaged. This time, it was different. Doubts. No hidden glances. No awkward silences. At least, that's what I believed. The engagement party was smaller than the last one. More private. More controlled. Zoya stood beside me, confident as ever, her hand resting lightly in mine. "You look tense," she said quietly. I gave a faint smile. "Just thinking." She tilted her head slightly. "Don't overthink." "I don't make mistakes." I almost laughed. If only that were true. Everything was perfect. Until... "Hey, watching." The air shifted instantly. I didn't know him, but Zoya did. I saw it in her eyes. Salo. The one I had seen before. Recognition. Her fingers stiffened in mine. Just for a second. But I felt it. "Zoya," I said quietly. "Who is he?" She didn't answer immediately. And that silence felt painfully familiar. "My ex," she finally said. "Of course." I stared at the man across the room. Confident, calm, watching us. No watching her. He started walking toward us. Each step slow, intentional. Like he belonged here. "Zoya," he said smoothly when he reached us. Her name sounded different coming from him. Closer, personal. "You shouldn't be here," she replied. Her voice steady but her eyes betrayed tension. Smirked. "Really? After everything? You think I'd miss this?" I stepped slightly forward. "You've said what you needed to say. You can leave now." He looked at me for the first time, smiled. "That's cute," he said. "But I'm not here for you." The room felt colder. He turned back to Zoya. "You really moved on that fast?" He asked softly. "Or is this just another one of your decisions?" Zoya's jaw tightened. "Don't start." But he already had. I came here to remind you of something, he continued. My instincts sharpened. Something was wrong. What? She asked. He leaned closer and said quietly, You don't get to erase me that easily. Silence. Heavy, dangerous silence. And then, Zoya didn't respond. That was all I needed. The same pattern, different face, same story. I took a slow step back, my expression calm, because now I understood. It wasn't about them. It was about me, and the fact that somehow I kept choosing women who weren't done with their past. I looked at Zoya one last time. On this, Chimi, there was no confusion left. Only clarity. Chapter 5. They chose the wrong guy. The silence after his words was unbearable. Zoya stood frozen. Her ex stood confident. I stood there, watching it all unfold like a scene I had already lived before. Déjà vu. Different woman. Different man. Same hesitation. I exhaled slowly, my expression calm. You should answer him, I said quietly, looking at Zoya. Her eyes snapped toward me. Wait, this isn't what it looks like. I almost smiled. I had heard that before. It looks exactly like what it is, I replied. Her ex chuckled softly, crossing his arms. Smart guy, he said, glancing at me. At least you're not blind. I ignored him. My focus was only on Zoya. Tell me something simple, I said. If he hadn't shown up today, would you have told me about him? She hesitated. Again. That hesitation was louder than any confession. I nodded slowly. Got it. Listen to me, she said, stepping closer. I was going to tell you. I just needed time. Chimi. Another familiar excuse. For what? I asked calmly. To decide between us? Her silence confirmed it. Her ex smirked wider now. This is getting interesting, he muttered. I turned toward him briefly. You can relax, I said. I'm not here to compete. That caught both of them off guard. I don't fight over people, I continued. If someone isn't sure about me, they've already made their choice. Zoya's expression shifted panic, realization, fear. Wait, she said quickly. You're misunderstanding. No, I interrupted softly. This time, I understand perfectly. The room felt quieter now, as if everything around us had faded, leaving only this moment behind. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the engagement ring. Zoya's breath hitched. Her ex straightened slightly, surprised. I held the ring between my fingers for a second, then placed it gently on the table beside us. I don't do second place, I said calmly. Her eyes filled with emotion. Please, don't do this. I looked at her one last time. Nowhere. Pain. Just clarity. You should figure out what you actually want, I said. But you won't do it with me waiting around. Her ex let out a low whistle. Damn. I turned and started walking away. Notation. No looking back. Stop. Zoya's voice cracked behind me. But I didn't stop. Because this time, I wasn't the one being left behind. I stepped out of the hall, the cool night air hitting my face. And for the first time, I felt something unexpected. Not heartbreak. Not anger. Control. I slipped my hands into my pockets, a faint smirk forming. They really chose the wrong guy. I muttered, because what they didn't realize was I wasn't losing anything. I was just getting started. Chapter 6. The Man They Underestimated. The night air was crisp, carrying a sense of possibility. I walked through the city streets alone, yet I didn't feel lonely. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. Freedom, though, was a dangerous thing, because now they would notice. They would realize that I wasn't the man they thought I was. Zoya had made her choice, or so she believed. Ina, well, she had already gone her own way months ago. Somehow, both of them still thought they could influence me. I stepped into my office the next morning, the city skyline glowing behind the floor-to-ceiling windows. It was quiet, calculated, controlled. Exactly how I liked it. The first call came unexpectedly. "Are you serious?" Zoya's voice was sharp, tinged with disbelief. "You just walked away?" I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands. Yes, I walked away. And I intend to keep walking if it's the wrong direction for me. There was silence. I thought you cared," she finally admitted. I smiled faintly, a calm, measured smile. "Ducati." But caring doesn't mean waiting around for someone who isn't sure. That's the difference. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. Meanwhile, Ina's name appeared in my inbox unexpectedly. "Simple, Ine. I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long moment. Some part of me wanted to respond, but I didn't, because I had learned a lesson. Being the man they underestimated gave me clarity, power. By the afternoon, I was already moving on to new opportunities. Business deals, networking, even personal ventures. I was thriving. And the most important part? I wasn't waiting for anyone to validate me anymore. That evening, I received another message. "Zoya, you can't just leave. This isn't over." I chuckled softly, walking past the skyscraper windows. "You really think this is about me?" I whispered to myself. "No, this is about them realizing they underestimated the wrong guy. Because here's the truth. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't heartbroken. I was patient. I was confident. I was ready. And when they realized their mistake, it would be too late. The game had changed, and I was now the one controlling the board. Chapter 7. The Hidden Moves Revealed. The following week was a chessboard, and I was holding all the pieces. Every message, every glance, every small interaction had been calculated. Not recklessly, not blindly, deliberately. Zoya tried to reach me again. Text after text. "I need to explain. You don't understand. Please, just meet me." I ignored them all, because patience was power. And now it was time to reveal mine. The night I chose to respond, I didn't call her. I didn't meet her at some public cafe. I invited her to my office. When she arrived, she expected confrontation, fear, anger, a plea. Instead, she found control. I gestured to the empty room. "Sit," I said softly. She hesitated but obeyed. "You've been hiding things," I began. "Not from me, necessarily, but from yourself, and from the people around you." Her lips parted. "You, what are you?" I held up a hand. She let me finish. I laid out everything. Ina's slow departure and her continued attempts to pull me back into old patterns. Zoya's ex, waiting for the perfect moment to create doubt. The small lies and half-truths that had been planted in my life by people who underestimated me. Her eyes widened with every revelation. You knew, she whispered. I smiled faintly. Of course I knew. I always knew. I leaned back in my chair, relaxed but sharp. Here's the thing, I said. You don't get to play your games with me anymore. Every move you think is hidden. See it. Zoya swallowed hard. I didn't know you. I shook my head. Don't start. This isn't about me. It's about you realizing that hiding moves only works until someone watches carefully enough. Then I revealed the final card. The network of information I had quietly collected. Every text, every interaction, every hint of betrayal, all of it mapped out. Her expression changed from surprise to fear. Why didn't you say anything? I leaned forward slightly. Because revealing power too early is pointless. The impact only comes when timing is perfect. She looked at me now, eyes wide, lips parted, realization dawning. You're unstoppable. I didn't answer. Instead, I let the silence speak. Outside the office, the city lights shimmered like witnesses. Inside, everything had shifted. The hidden moves were now visible. The game was transparent. And only one truth remained. I had already won. Chapter 8. The power shift begins. The silence in the office didn't just linger, it shifted. For the first time since Zoya had walked in, she realized something terrifying. She wasn't in control anymore. And neither was Areeba. I leaned back in my chair, watching her carefully. Not with anger. Not with heartbreak, but with calm calculation. That alone unsettled her more than anything I could have said. You've been watching me, she finally whispered. I tilted my head slightly. No, I replied. I've been preparing. Her fingers tightened around her bag. Preparing for what? I stood up slowly, walking toward the glass window overlooking the city. The lights below flickered like a battlefield waiting to be claimed. For the moment you both realized, I said quietly, that I was never your backup. Behind me, I could hear her breath hitch. That truth hit harder than any accusation. Zoya wasn't the only one shaken that night. Across the city, in a luxury penthouse, Areeba stared at her phone, my message still open. You chose wrong. 3 simple words. But they shattered everything she thought she controlled. She had always believed she could come back. That no matter how far she went, I would still be there. Waiting. Available. Hers. But now she wasn't even an option. Back in the office, Zoya finally found her voice. You think you've won? She asked, trying to regain some composure. I turned to face her, my expression unreadable. This was never a competition. Then what is it? A lesson. Her brows furrowed. For who? For both of you. I walked past her, grabbing a file from my desk and placing it in front of her. Open it. She hesitated. Indeed. Inside were contracts, timelines, and records everything tied to both her and Areeba. But what caught her attention most was the name at the top. Minnie. Followed by something she never expected. ownership, influence, control. This, her voice trembled. This isn't possible. It is, I said calmly. You built all of this. I met her eyes directly, while you were both busy choosing someone else. That was the moment it finally hit her. They didn't lose me. They lost everything I was becoming. Zoya slowly looked up at me, her confidence completely gone now. What do you want? For a brief second, there was silence again. But this time, it wasn't tension. It was clarity. I don't want anything from you, I said. That hurt her more than anything else. Because for the first time, she realized she wasn't needed. Meanwhile, across the city, Areeba made a decision. A desperate one. She grabbed her keys, her hands shaking. I need to see him, she muttered. Because deep down, both women had finally understood the same thing. They hadn't just chosen the wrong man. They had underestimated the right one. Oh! The power had shifted. Chapter 9. The game intensifies. The moment power shifts, people don't accept it. They fight it. And that's exactly what both Zoya and Areeba were about to do. It started the very next morning. I had just stepped into the office when my assistant approached me, slightly nervous. Sir, you have an unexpected visitor. I didn't need to ask who. Send her in. A few seconds later, the door opened. Areeba walked in, confident as always. But today, there was something different. Desperation. She didn't sit, didn't smile, didn't pretend. Why didn't you tell me? She asked immediately. I looked up from my desk, calm as ever. Tell you what? That you became this. She gestured around the office. That you built everything. I leaned back slightly. You never asked. Her jaw tightened. That's not fair. I almost smiled. Fair, I repeated. You left. That hit its mark. For a moment, the room fell silent. Then she stepped closer. I made a mistake. Simple words. But they carried weight. Because for Areeba, admitting that was rare. I thought I had time, she continued, that I could fix things later. I watched her carefully. Anne? Her voice softened. Now I know I don't. Across the room, the door opened again. Zoya. She froze the moment she saw Areeba. And Areeba froze when she saw her. The tension between them was instant. Sharp. Unavoidable. So it's true, Zoya said quietly. You came back. Areeba crossed her arms. Looks like I'm not the only one. Their eyes locked. Two women. One mistake. Same realization. I stood up slowly, walking between them. You both chose someone else, I said calmly. Neither of them responded. Because they couldn't deny it. Zoya spoke first. I ended it, she said quickly. The moment I realized what I lost. Areeba scoffed. Too late for that. Zoya shot you back at least. I didn't run out. And at least I didn't treat him like a second option. The room heated instantly. Enough. My voice wasn't loud. But it was enough. Both of them went silent. I looked at them, really looked this time. Not as the girls I once loved, but as people who had finally understood consequences. You're both here for the same reason, I said. Neither of them denied it. Areeba took a step forward. I want another chance. Zoya followed. Zoe. There it was. The moment most men would dream of. The women. Fighting for them. Begging to come back. But I wasn't most men anymore. I let the silence stretch. Let them feel it. The uncertainty. The lack of control. Then I spoke. I'll give you both a chance. Their eyes lit up instantly. Happy. Relief. Desperation. But then I added. On my terms. That's when their expressions changed. Because deep down, they knew this wasn't going to be easy. This isn't about love anymore. I continued. It's about proving something. Zoya frowned. Proving what? I looked directly at both of them. That you're not the same people who walked away. Areeba swallowed. And if we can prove that... I paused for a moment, then gave the only answer that mattered. Maybe. I'll consider it. The game had officially begun. Of love, but of redemption, of power, of truth. And this Jimmy. I was the one making the rules. Chapter 10, Rules of the Game. The moment I said, on my terms, everything changed. Not just for them. For me too. Zoya and Areeba stood across from me, no longer confident, no longer in control. Now they were waiting for my decision, for my rules. I walked past them slowly, letting the silence stretch just enough to make them uneasy. You both want a second chance, I said. They nodded almost instantly. First. Doga. That told me everything. Then understand this, I continued. You're not competing for me. They exchanged a quick glance. Confused. Then what is this? Zoya asked. I turned back to them, my expression combat firm. You're competing with yourselves. That answer didn't satisfy them. Of course it didn't. They were used to winning by comparison. By being better than the other person. This Jimmy. That wouldn't work. Areeba stepped forward. Stop playing games and just tell us what you want. I met her gaze directly. This isn't a game for me. Then I added quietly. But it will feel like one to you. I placed 2 identical folders on the table. Inside these are opportunities, I said. Here are ones. Business deals, responsibilities, decisions. Zoya frowned. What does that have to do with us? Everything. They hesitated. Then each picked up a folder. As they opened them, their expressions slowly shifted. Surprise. Confusion. Then realization. These are... Areeba whispered. Real projects, I confirmed. Each of you will handle one. Zoya looked up. And I'll be watching. The room grew quiet again. But this silence wasn't heavy. It was sharp. Focused. You want to prove you've changed? I continued. Show me. Not with words, but with actions. Areeba closed her folder slowly. And if we fail, I didn't hesitate. Then this ends. That was the moment it became real for them. This wasn't about emotions anymore. Not apologies. Not promises. This was about worth. Zoya straightened slightly, determination creeping back into her posture. I won't fail. Areeba smirked faintly. Neither will I. For the first time since they walked in, they looked like themselves again. Strong, driven, dangerous. But this chimney there was for it. Now they had something to lose. I watched them carefully as they prepared to leave, because what they didn't realize yet was that it was a mirror, one that would show them exactly who they really were, without me, without each other. As the door closed behind them, I exhaled slowly. Alone again. For a brief moment, the silence returned. But this time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt controlled. Because now, everything was exactly where I wanted it to be. Across the city, both women stepped into their separate cars. Folders in hand, eyes filled with determination, hearts filled with something unfamiliar. Fear. Because deep down, they both knew the truth. This wasn't about winning me back anymore. It was about proving they deserved to. Chapter 11, Pressure Turns Personal. The projects began the next day. With him. They outdesty. Zoya chose speed. She moved fast, diving into meetings, pushing decisions, trying to prove she could handle pressure without hesitation. Her confidence returned, but this time, it wasn't careless. It was controlled. At least, on the surface. Areeba chose précise. She analyzed everything. Every number, every risk, every outcome. Where Zoya rushed forward, Areeba calculated every step like a chess player. Cold, strategic, dangerous. And I watched. Not as someone they loved, but as someone judging them. At first, everything stayed professional. Updates, reports, progress. But it didn't take long for things to turn personal. It started small. Zoya noticed one of her key contacts suddenly backing out of a deal. No warning. No explanation. Gone. Across the city, Areeba closed her laptop with a quiet sigh. She hadn't sabotaged anything directly. She had redirected an opportunity. So marvy. Clean, smart, effective. This isn't just a test anymore. Zoya muttered to herself, staring at the failed deal. She understood immediately. Areeba wasn't just competing. She was playing to win. That night, Zoya made her own move. She stayed late, digging deeper into her project, finding a hidden angle, something bigger, riskier, but powerful. If she wants a game, Zoya whispered, I'll give her one. Meanwhile, I reviewed both of their progress. Every detail. Every decision, every hidden move. And I saw it clearly. They weren't just trying to prove themselves anymore. They were trying to outdo each other. The next meeting confirmed it. Both of them walked in. Different energy. Sharper eyes. Stronger presence. Zoya presented first. Bold strategy. High risk. High reward. She spoke with confidence, but beneath it, there was fire. Areeba followed. Calm, controlled, flawless execution plan. But her eyes flickered toward Zoya for just a second. A silent challenge. When they finished, the room fell quiet. All eyes on me. Waiting. I leaned back slightly, studying them both. You've both improved, I said. A brief pause. I did. But you've also both made the same mistake. Their expressions changed instantly. What mistake? Areeba asked. I looked at them carefully. You made it about each other. Silence. Heavy this time. Zoya frowned. This is a competition. I shook my head slowly. No, it's a reflection. They didn't fully understand yet. But they would. Because the more personal this became, the more they risked losing again. And this, Chimi, there would be no coming back. Chapter 12. When control breaks. Pressure doesn't break people instantly. Ils. Quietly. Slowly. Until one moment. Everything cracks. Zoya felt it first. The weight of expectations. The constant need to prove herself not just to me, but now. Against Areeba. Every move she made felt watched, judged, measured. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure she was winning. Her project had taken a risky turn. High stakes. High reward. But now the investors were hesitating. Questions were being raised. Doubts were creeping in. Sitting alone in the conference room, Zoya stared at the documents in front of her. This wasn't supposed to go like this. She whispered. Her hands tightened slightly. For the first time, fear showed. Across the city, Areeba wasn't doing much better. Her plan was perfect. Calculated, safe. But that was the problem. It lacked impact. It lacked boldness. Indépendant. She knew it. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the screen. I played it too safe. She admitted quietly. For someone like Areeba, that realization hit hard. Because she prided herself on control. On precision. On never making mistakes. This Chimi. Playing safe was the mistake. The next meeting brought everything to the surface. Both of them walked in. Not as confident as before. Not as composed. I noticed it immediately. The slight tension in their posture. The hesitation in their eyes. The cracks. Let's begin, I said calmly. Zoya presented first. Her voice was steady, but just barely. As she explained her plan, questions came fast. Sharp, direct. And this, Chimi. She struggled to answer. A pause. A mistake. A flicker of doubt. Areeba saw it. And for a second, she almost smiled. Then it was her turn. Her presentation was flawless. Safi. Controlled. But when she finished, the silence that followed wasn't impressed. It was underwhelmed. I leaned forward slightly. Is that all? I asked. That question hit harder than any criticism. Areeba's expression faltered for just a second. And that was enough. The room fell silent again. This Chimi. It wasn't tension. It was exposure. Both of them had failed. In different ways. Zoya let emotion cloud her decisions. Areeba let fear limit hers. I stood up slowly. You're both losing, I said plainly. Neither of them argued. Because they knew it was true. This is what happens, I continued, when you stop focusing on yourselves. And start focusing on each other. Zoya looked down. Areeba looked away. For the first time. Neither of them had anything to say. Because deep down, they both realized the same thing. They weren't ready. Not for me. For this. And maybe. Not even for themselves. Chapter 13. The Shocking Move. The office was quiet too quiet. That silence didn't comfort me, warn me. Because when someone feels cornered, that's when they strike. Zoya was first to arrive that morning. Her steps were steady, but her eyes betrayed her. Determination, fear, something darker lurking underneath. She didn't speak at first. She didn't need to. I watched as she placed something on my desk. A single folder. Inside, everything I hadn't expected. Plans, strategies, moves I hadn't considered. A challenge. A direct challenge. I'm not letting this go, Zoya said quietly. Not anymore. Not without proving I can do this my way. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with intensity. Areeba arrived shortly after. She had already seen the folder. She paused, realization flickering across her face. Then she smiled. "Oh, it's on," she muttered. The room became a battlefield. Not of words, not of accusations, but of strategy. Each folder represented more than work. It represented pride, control, power. I leaned back, arms folded, watching carefully. Every glance, every gesture, every subtle maneuver. They didn't even notice I was watching. Zoya went first. She executed a risky strategy that would either pay off immensely or fail spectacularly. Her confidence was raw, unfiltered. I could see the gamble in every step she took. Areeba responded almost immediately. Calculated, precise, and aggressive. A counterstrike designed to outplay Zoya at every turn. The intensity in the room was palpable. For the first time, both women weren't competing for me. They were competing against each other. And worked brilliantly. I remained silent, letting them fight their own battle. Every misstep, every risk, every bold move. I catalogued it all. Because power wasn't about who yelled the loudest. It was about who controlled the outcome. Hours passed. By the end of the day, both women were exhausted. Sweat on brows. Hair slightly disheveled. Eyes sharper than ever. I finally spoke. "You've both changed," I said calmly. "But only one thing matters now." They looked at me, anticipation flashing in their eyes. Who's willing to play the hardest game? I continued. Not the easy wins. Not the safe choices. The one who can take risks, face fear, and never back down. Zoya swallowed hard. Areeba straightened. Both knew the rules now. This wasn't just about winning me back anymore. It was about proving they could survive their own game. And in that moment, the shocking move wasn't just about strategy. It was about revealing their true selves. The game had escalated, and there was no turning back. Chapter 14: Emotional Confrontations. The tension between Zoya and Areeba had reached its peak. Hours of calculated moves, risky strategies, and silent observation had left them exhausted but not defeated. That morning, I watched them enter the office. Zoya's eyes were sharper, but there was a tremor in her hand. Areeba's posture was flawless, but her gaze lingered on Zoya a little too long. Both were poised. Both were dangerous. "You need to understand something," I began calmly. "This isn't about winning or losing anymore." They froze. Zoya tilted her head. "Then what is it about?" I let the silence hang, heavy and deliberate. Areeba broke first. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" she said, her voice steady but edge-laced. I shrugged lightly. I'm observing. Her eyes narrowed. You mean watching us break? I leaned forward slightly. Not break. Evolve. Zoya's breath hitched. Evolve. She read. You're enjoying seeing us fight, tear each other apart. I smiled faintly. Only if it leads to truth. Only if it forces you to confront what you really want. And who you really are. The words hung between them like a storm. Both women exchanged a look. For the first time, their rivalry wasn't just strategic. It was personal, emotional. Areeba took a step closer. You think we're here for you, she said softly. Maybe. Maybe we're here for ourselves. Zoya's eyes widened. I never thought of it that way. And in that instant, something shifted. The room was no longer about competition. It was about confession. Zoya's lips trembled. I was afraid of failing. Of losing you, she admitted. Areeba down for a moment, then back at me. And I was afraid of looking weak. Of letting you see me as less than perfect. I leaned back every day holding in. Their insecurities. Their fears. Their desires. For the first time, they weren't trying to outdo each other. They were showing me themselves. I studied them carefully. Bewargi. Every pause. Every unspoken thought. And then I spoke. Now you understand. Winning me isn't about strategy anymore. It's about honesty. And courage. Both women blinked. They understood the stakes had changed. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about the projects. It was about proving they could face themselves. The silence returned. This time, it wasn't tense. It was charged. Full of emotion. Full of possibilities. And deeply realized, the hardest battle wasn't winning me back. It was facing themselves. Their rivalry had evolved. Into respect. Into truth. And the next move would define everything. Chapter 15, The Final Choice. The air was electric. Weeks of tension, strategies, and emotional battles had brought us here. Not as rivals, not as ex-lovers, but as people who had faced themselves and each other. Zoya and Areeba stood in front of me, both exhausted but unbroken. Their eyes reflected everything they had been through: pride, fear, hope, and determination. This was the moment where the game ended or transformed. You've both proven something, I began. Not just to me, but to yourselves. They exchanged a quick glance. Each knew exactly what I meant. Zoya stepped forward first. I know I've made mistakes, she said softly, her voice steady now. I let fear and pride get in the way. But I've learned. I can face anything now. Areeba's lips pressed together, not to speak, but to keep her composure. Her eyes, though, betrayed her thoughts. She had one chance to prove herself too. And I've realized something, I said, turning my gaze to Areeba. This isn't about who's faster, or smarter, or bolder. It's about honesty, commitment, courage. Areeba nodded swallowed. I'm ready, she said quietly. Not just for you, but for myself. For a moment, the room went silent. The city lights outside glimmered, reflecting in the glass walls like countless possibilities. I studied both of them. They had changed. They weren't the same people who had walked in weeks ago. I stepped forward. This isn't about picking one over the other, I said. It's about who can stand firm, take responsibility, and prove themselves under pressure. Zoya's hand twitched slightly. Areeba's jaw tightened. Both were ready. Both had fought in their own way. Both had evolved. Then I smiled faintly. Congratulations, I said. You've both won, but not for me. You've won for yourselves. They blinked, not sure how to respond. Because it wasn't the outcome they expected. It wasn't about me choosing them. It was about realizing their own worth. I'm back letting moment. From now on, I continued, any game, any challenge, you face. Do it for yourself first. Everything else will follow. Zoya exhaled slowly, a mixture of relief and pride washing over her face. Areeba nodded but and in that moment, the rivalry ended. Not with heartbreak, not with jealousy, but with respect, with growth, with understanding. The power struggle, the games, the emotions, they all led to one truth. Winning doesn't always mean taking someone. Sometimes it means becoming someone. The room was quiet. The city shimmered outside. And for the first time, we were all free. The final chapter wasn't about choosing. It was about rising